what do you think of the album?
Oh, the monster kitty. Hey, this is Matt O'Leary, and this is a review of the fourth album from the experimental pop rock New Yorkers Yeasayer, called Amen and Goodbye. This band busted onto the scene in 2007 with All Our Symbols, their debut. This was really an indie rock album at the core, but it was laced with these world beat and Eastern influences and scales, along with some just yelped and indiscernible vocals. And that album just had a huge dynamic range from these big, massive, timpani bashing moments to more solemn sitars. Really was one of the coolest debut records I've ever heard. But their second album, Odd Blood, is the one that actually really gripped me and solidified Yeasayer's pop hook abilities. Then in 2012 we had Fragrant World, which was definitely more dark and brooding with these experimental electronics, just generally more intense and a little less fun. So, 3 records I really enjoyed, but not one that stands out as that modern masterpiece, to me at least. Just seems like a lot of great ideas were thrown kind of with no coordination up against the wall.
Nope.
So now, the moment we've been waiting for, the album that finally is that worthy museum piece that their children can look fondly back upon. Well, almost. We do have elements of the first 3 records thrown into a mixing pot on this fourth one, but not a salad bowl, because that's a bad analogy. Not some tomatoes and delicious lettuce kind of coexisting, but still living pretty separate. No, I'm talking a legitimate mixing bowl where this delicious concoction is somehow better than the sum of its parts. Yeasayer definitely have blended their unique styles into something that's inexplicably them. I mean, you hear this and you know who it is. I think they've really owned their sound on Amen and Goodbye. Let's get into the lead single, I Am Chemistry, a song with a 4-chord structure and hook that I'm not crazy about. It gets a little tedious, but I find that the song has enough variety to keep me interested. The bass lines and melodic structure remind me a lot of I Remember from Odd Blood, a song that did Tame Impala's Currents brand of neo-psych way before it was cool. And with the trippy video and this prim and proper kids choir singing about getting high on oleander, this is anything but formulaic. The next song, Silly Me, is this album's one from Odd Blood. Yeah, it's that song that you discovered on FIFA. For a bump and bass banger, these lyrics have a surprising amount of depth with kind of talking about some relationship argument of some kind. It takes kind of an apologetic tone on the chorus. Silly me, it's all my fault, I wasn't thinking clearly. But in the bridge, our hero realizes that maybe it's not all his fault. That the love he thought his partner had for him may just be a love for domination and ownership. He compares himself to a dog who's kind of a slave to an ill-tempered master. The next song, Half Asleep, then brings back these Eastern tones from All Our Symbols with a gorgeous guest vocal from the folk vocalist Susie Roche. This one's a huge standout for me, one that really breaks up this string of more light-hearted tunes and catches me off guard. It's got a strong hip-hop beat and some overlapping and mollifying male and female vocals. Then they hit us with this wicked funky bass line on Dead Sea Scrolls, a song that reminds me a lot of Beck's Midnight Vultures album. These 2 last songs into Prophecy Gun are my favorite stretch on the album. So beautifully dynamic. I think of Prophecy Gun as sort of the bridging track between the 2 halves of the album. It's just got these gorgeous electronic soundscapes and awe-inspiring melodies and this auxiliary percussion. It's just a great track. Although the strangeness of the next few tracks can feel a little bit like filler, I think it's really well written and it's interesting, and it kind of is just this brief lull before they hit us with some more layered psych pop. One thing I'm left kind of wishing for on this album, and all of Yeasayer's work really, is for those vocal harmonies to really pop through the mix, just because it seems like the compositions are so kind of centered around them, and they don't really burst forth or shine like something from Queen or the Beatles. And speaking of that band, Uma is a little ditty that would have made John Lennon proud. Led by this woozy theremin lead, it's one that could be a little more intimate, but just as so, I think it's one that Uma, this child, will always really adore, and if that doesn't fill you with warmth, I don't know what will. The one big misstep here for me is the production on Cold Night. It's a pretty well-written song with a very Johnny Buckland from Coldplay kind of Viva La Vida era guitar lead, but the bass is almost non-existent, and I just think it's a pretty underwhelming end to the album. And the little 46-second Amen and Goodbye track is kind of the same to me, inconsequential. It's not... It almost feels like an anti-ending. Like with their past work, I don't think that this is the magnum opus. I still think they're building to something great, but with 2 to 4 years between albums, it's hard to know if they're ever going to get there. Don't get me wrong though, I do really enjoy this album, and I think if you're looking for original and extremely fresh pop music, there really aren't too many better bands out there. This is a diverse and detailed collection of tracks that really stands as a beacon of quality within this market that's very flooded, this neo-psych pop sound. And let's not forget about this awesome album cover. Kind of reminds me of a Hieronymus Bosch painting or like an I Spy collage or something. I mean, where else are you going to find pineapples and Mark Twain and an anime character together? Alright, 8 out of 10. This one is solid. One of my favorites of the year probably so far. And a definite recommendation. So go out and pick this thing up and, you know, support those artists. And yeah, I'll be looking to pick it up probably on vinyl. I show a lot of that collection on Instagram, which is down in the description box below. Also my Facebook, a link to a teaser of my little EP that I put out last year. And some other goodies, so check that out. Like, comment, subscribe. YouTube. See ya.